faces that you're seeing on our screen right now are our lovely Belmont University students.
Awesome.
So Chris, if you would like to give a little bit of background about yourself and talk to the students about your website.
Sure. Again, my name's Chris Kidd. I'm the owner of StyleCareers.com. If you are not familiar with StyleCareers.com, you need to have a profile on the site. It's the largest fashion-only job listing site on the internet, bar none. All of y'all are too young to remember Women's Wear Daily, when Women's Wear Daily used to have the market cornered on job listing classifieds back in the late 90s, early 2000s. Women's Wear Daily, you'd always buy the paper on Wednesday because on Wednesday they would have 12 to 15 pages of classified ads. And so we just took that concept and put it online. My background is in textiles. I graduated from North Carolina State College of Textiles.
Right.
Go Wolfpack. I actually went back as a grown-up student, in my middle 20s after I drank my way out of Texas A&M. So, if you have a little failure to launch now, it's not the end of the world. But right after school, that was during the first tech boom of the late 90s. And I gravitated toward the technology section of the fashion industry. Whereas I wanted to start my own line, I was pretty good with the tech stuff, and it got moved to New York pretty quickly from North Carolina State. And after that, I lost a job after I got moved out to the Midwest to sell CAD/CAM products, and looking for a job, I started StyleCareers. So that's almost 20 years ago.
That's amazing. So in my experience as a designer in New York from 2005 until about 2013, StyleCareers was instrumental in my career development, as well as the career development of basically everyone that I knew. So Chris, can you speak to the categories of job opportunities that are available on the website?
First, I got to say that made me really happy to hear you say that. Hopefully you're on the site. Maybe I met you at a career fair. Maybe, I don't know. But that's awesome. StyleCareers covers basically everything that makes a fashion company go, right? So design, product development, production, sourcing, planning, all of the merchant functions, buying, allocations, merchandising. And then we touch on a lot of the boutique retail. For example, like someone who wants to manage a Gucci store, or someone who manages a Gucci store makes as much money as a director of production at a lot of companies. You know what I mean? So it's, we don't deal with a lot of lower end store level retail, mainly because those companies, don't have that fashion quotient that, our site almost requires. E-commerce is a big section for us now. You got to figure, when I started StyleCareers.com, there was no such thing as e-commerce. You know what I mean? There have been technical designers for 100 years. There's been e-commerce for about 20. So it's really a brand new field that a lot of people in it know what they're doing, and a lot of people don't. You know what I mean? It's definitely an area where young people can really make a mark, and especially with the whole pandemic thing, such a bigger emphasis has been put on e-commerce that, if you're looking at expanding what you do, e-commerce is a great place to start.
That's so cool. So our class today is primarily comprised of fashion design majors and fashion merchandising majors. And I was wondering if you can speak from your proximity with regards to StyleCareers.com. Have you noticed a trend in what employers are looking for in recent fashion graduates?
Well, you know what, and I got to preface this by saying I'm not politically correct. I'm old enough to where I didn't have to worry about that when I was young. So if I offend anybody, it's not intentional, right? And it would be accidentally, of course. And I have a tendency to tell people the real deal as opposed to sugarcoating things, and I hope that's okay.
Please do.
Companies today are hiring for attitude more than experience when you're younger, right? A lot of people want to write their initial resume talking about, oh, I want a job where I can learn and grow and all this kind of stuff. And companies don't care about that, right? They want to know what you can do for the company, right? So the big thing for designers, for merchandisers, is you have to approach looking for a job is what kind of value can you bring to a company, not what are you trying to get out of your employment. Hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you know, it's, you know, that, and before you apply to a job, research the company. You know what I mean? The biggest complaint we get from recruiters, and we deal with almost every recruiter in the industry or have at some point, is that candidates show up not knowing about the company, and they ask the most like fundamental questions, things that they could have found on the company's website or a quick Google search. The more information you have about a company, and if you can convey that in a cover letter or in an initial interview, it goes such a long way, because it shows that you care, and it shows that, you know, you're not just looking for a job to get a job, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you noticed that successful candidates set themselves apart from the crowd with any certain kind of way that they communicate that information? Websites, Instagram, resumes, that kind of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, when you apply to a job, and if you make the final cut, before they even do a phone interview, they're looking you up, right? So they want to see your Instagram. They're gonna search you on Facebook or, you know, whatever you're using. You know what I mean? They're gonna look at your LinkedIn profile. You gotta have a LinkedIn profile. To get to that point, you have to have a realistic resume. A lot of younger job seekers like to fluff their resume, make it seem much more grand than it really is. And recruiters who read, you know, hundreds of resumes a day, thousands of resumes a week, they see through that, and then they look at you as being disgenuine. Does that make sense? And so, you know, accurately portray what you can do on your resume. And then you have to show tech savvy. I mean, if you're a designer, you have to have an online portfolio, right? We have a sister site called StyleCareerscom. It's not as advanced as Behance. It's not as advanced as Coraflot, and it's not as pretty as if you had your own website. But it is promoted and used by fashion industry recruiters, and it's free for job seekers, free for recruiters. We provide it for free because, you know, if someone's on Style Portfolios, they're going to find Style Careers. So it's cheaper for me to host Style Portfolios for free than it is to buy Google ads. You know what I mean? So
Fascinating.
we like that. We like the synergy of that. But as a young job seeker, especially if you're a designer, and even a lot of merchandising students, and merchandising is such a nebulous word, I hate using it sometimes, but you have to have an online portfolio. If you've got a personal blog, especially if you have a personal blog that's focused on being professional, you know, the trends that you see, or, you know, various things about your student life that's geared towards your job, you know, that goes a long way. You know what I mean? Now, if you're a terrible writer, don't put up a blog with a lot of words. But it's mostly about the pictures with blogs anyway, right?
No kidding. Going back to how merchandising can sometimes be a little bit of a nebulous misnomer, as well as, you know, fashion design can incorporate so many different aspects, both pre-COVID recently, and also potentially maybe speaking to COVID times. Where are the jobs, and especially where are the jobs for new fashion grads? Have you seen any trends?
Well, the jobs in fashion are are you talking about like physical locations or?
No, actually, I was speaking more to what kind of categories of jobs are you seeing? Are there new developments in opportunities with this level of background of education, and basically job titles? What should our students be looking for with regards to job titles?
Yeah, you know, even designers, I would, you know, having a marketing minor is great because everything is so geared towards e-commerce marketing right now that anybody, even if you're a designer, even if you're a merchandiser, if you have any sort of marketing minor or at least marketing, you know, experience that you can show on your resume, that's going to be huge. If you want to go into buy, I don't know if, the merchandisers here, I don't know if it's what sort of merchandising it is, but if it's more of a merchant related merchandising program like buying or planning allocations, having a finance minor is huge. The hard part right now, and I hate to say this, is this is the absolute worst time in the history of America for people to be going into fashion. I mean, and I'm sorry to tell you this, but there is an opportunity though, because companies are dumping payroll and they're replacing them with younger people. Companies, that are, on the brink of bankruptcy or that are currently in bankruptcy, they're looking to replace experienced high dollar talent with younger people. You know what I mean? So I say it's terrible. And, most people say it's the worst since the Great Depression. In the fashion industry, this is worse than the Great Depression. In April, about 76% of the industry was either laid off or furloughed. Of the people that were furloughed, statistically, half of them ended up losing their jobs. So that keeps us roughly, we're at like 40 to 50% unemployment right now.
Wow.
It's staggering, the numbers. And, if you guys haven't, you should definitely go to StyleDispatch.com. That's kind of our news site. It's more of a careerist site. You don't have to be looking for a job to get benefits from StyleDispatch.com. Because we'll do surveys, and we're pretty tuned in with the fashion industry, and it's home office fashion. We're not like Women's Wear Daily, where 90% of the people that use us are editorial types. You know what I mean? This is where the rubber hits the road. These are the people that run the fit sessions. You know what I mean? These are the people that draw the paper dolls. You know what I mean? This is hardcore back office fashion stuff, and it's ugly out there.
Yeah. So I lived through the recession in 2008 from a career perspective in New York. So can you anticipate, and this might go too far outside of your realm of expertise into more of an economics area, do you anticipate a bounce back of the fashion industry? Because I think that this is actually a really important qualifier for our students, as we are, we're juniors right now and getting close to being seniors. Do you anticipate a job bounce back? Should we be boning up on secondary skills? 50% unemployment is really significant.
It's ridiculous. Yeah, no, so, the bottom line is everybody has to wear clothes, right? You know what I mean? So at the end of the day, until nudism is like totally vogue, we're gonna wear clothes, right? The types of clothes that you're gonna wear are different now as more people are working from home. I'm just wearing a black t-shirt and a pair of shorts. You know what I mean? Because that's all I gotta wear now. I don't have to wear a tie. You know what I mean? And that trend has been terrible for our industry. You know what I mean? Just me personally, we need some sort of cultural zeitgeist to get people to dress again, right? If you went through the recession of 2008, leading up to that, in the early 2000s or middle 2000s, Sex and the City made every woman buy a pair of Jimmy Choos. You know what I mean? And then Vince after that, or not Vince, but Entourage after that, every guy had to have a $300 pair of jeans and a t-shirt that cost $200. You know what I mean? And yet, it's just, there has to be cultural zeitgeist to get people shopping again. There has to be mega trends. I don't know how this is with Generation Z, but, and that's who we have in the room, right? I'm so old.
Generation Z? Okay, yes.
Yeah. But the millennial generation didn't go out, or they don't go out as much as like my generation, Generation X. You know what I mean? We were the tail end of disco and the beginning of new wave. You know what I mean? We went out and partied. And if you don't go out, you don't buy new clothes. You know what I mean? It's just it's the way it is. And so there has to be cultural shifts for us to get back to where we were in the 2000s, even the middle 20 teens. But these things shift. I remember the recession of the early 90s, and all the prices got dropped on clothing. And I can only speak to menswear, right? But the styles got boring. Everything was tan. Everything was like a, poet sweater. It was just crap. And it was crap for like 3 or 4 years until people started shopping. And when people started shopping, then companies started taking risks. When the economy's down, companies don't take risks. They buy more or design more of what sold last year. And so the challenge of the fashion industry is to create products that are more compelling than your phone, right? More compelling than Netflix. You know, they need to make, you know, we need to design clothes as an industry that make people want to go out. You know what I mean? Show off a little bit. I mean, it's just, as shallow as that sounds, that's what it comes down to.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting because we are talking of a microcosm of fashion jobs, but obviously we don't exist in a vacuum. And our industry, like all industries, are affected by outside influences that, you know, the shifting sands of time. And this is going to be something that affects all of you throughout your entire career, and always kind of looking at the horizon and making sure that the industry that you're in is either growing, or you're changing your skill sets, or taking continuously learning to make sure that the things that we are focusing on and learning are ultimately financially remunerative for your, you know, bill paying. I think so. This is an important conversation. Chris, kind of going back to what we were talking about earlier, for the jobs now and potentially a little bit before COVID hit, what geographies are you seeing? You know, we're based here in Nashville. We know the coasts as being some pretty major fashion industry locations. Just from a thought exercise, are there other geography locations in the States that?
Yeah, the biggest growth recently has been the state of Colorado because of all the outdoor companies relocating there. Like the North Face moved all their not the North Face, but the VF moved all of their outdoor brands to the Denver area, and a couple other companies. So if you're into like outdoor Patagonia type stuff, Denver's been a big growth area. Other than that, I mean, DFW, where I'm based right now, has been shrinking. JCPenney, I don't know how much longer they're going to be in business. Fossil's on their last legs. Neiman Marcus, which is awful, is barely hanging on. The San Francisco Bay Area, if you have a tech background, there's a lot of fashion startups. Not a lot, but more than, you know, like than in LA, for instance. But the big deal, if you're in Nashville's got a growing fashion scene. We've had a few companies from there, but they're typically like cool boutique type stuff that, you know, the owner is the main designer. And so you can get started there, you do an internship there, but you're going to have to move up. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. That's just generally, I can't say that about every company, right? There are specific companies you can target if you're looking at certain geographic areas, you know, like Kohl's tech design department and design is in outside of Minneapolis. You know, all the big brands in Ohio, the Columbus, Ohio used to have about a third of all the mall brands based just in that town. And, you know, those are struggling. You know, there's a really good chance that during your fashion career, you're going to need to go to New York or LA, maybe Miami, you know what I mean? But, you know, if you guys have the means, I would plan on going like at least a semester to New York or LA and trying to intern with companies. And if you can't get paid to intern, look at it like another semester of schooling. You know, back when I came up the industry, you had to pay your dues. I mean, that's just the way it was. And it paid off for a lot of people. And, you know, some people, it weeded them out and they realized they shouldn't be in the fashion industry. So geography wise, those are, you know, New York, LA, that's going to be 85% of the jobs. Denver's a growing market. San Francisco, if you've got a tech background, is huge because San Francisco's lousy for fashion, even though they've got some big companies there. And the tech companies, they don't get fashion other than the tech part, right? And so I know that we've got one person that worked with us at Style Careers for like 5 years. She got married and moved to San Francisco and got a job immediately with a fashion startup.
Oh, wow.
It's definitely, you know, something to look at. That's basically it as far as
Well, I think so far, this conversation has been, you know, realistic for the times that we have found ourselves in. But I think it's still relevant and important to talk about. So, Chris, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, and I'm sorry if I sounded like a downer. That's not, you know, it's better to know what you're going into rather than
I
right?
think it's better to be realistic. You know, fashion in its best days is a very competitive market. There's a ton of really fun jobs and creatively rewarding jobs and financially rewarding jobs that you can find. But I think that it's best to kind of be aware of the situation as you find it. And like Chris said, people are continuing to wear clothes the way that we purchase them, the way that they look, where we might be wearing them is continuously evolving, but that's how it is all the time. So kind of keeping your ears open and your eyes on the horizon, I think is going to be really helpful. Well,
real quick, can I just make a suggestion to all the young people, right? There's 2 books that you have to read as young people to start off your your professional life. I highly recommend buying 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
okay.
It's going to help you out tremendously. And then the second one is The Millionaire Next Door, because you're just starting your career and being able to, you know, support yourself financially is massive. And The Millionaire Next Door changed my life. And if you read it, it's likely to help you with your career too.
That's amazing. Thank you, Chris. We have a module near the end of our semester that talks to the importance of savings and understanding a little bit about health insurance and how taxes work and all of those things. So I personally will take a look at some excerpts from that book and incorporate them into that module. So thank you.
And you're in Dave Ramsey's hometown, so that's never going to hurt you guys. So.
No kidding. Well, guys, can you all say thank you so much to Chris for lending some time today? We appreciate your time so much. Having the insight that you do into the industry, as well as providing the platform for people just like us means a lot. And we wanted to say thank you.
You guys have been great. Lacey, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You.
Y'all.